Hello you guys, how are you? How are things? How's life treating you? Here in my neck of the woods, things are interesting. I feel like I always say that when I am feeling feelings because sometimes I just don't know how to describe them. So interesting is like my default description word. I am 10 months postpartum. I feel like things are getting lighter. Things are getting a little bit easier. I feel like I'm adjusting better. And I feel like I'm at the stage where I can open up more about my postpartum depression. I've talked about my postpartum depression before, but not necessarily in depth. And I think that's because I felt ashamed. I felt ashamed about having postpartum depression. I felt ashamed that I was not like the moms I was seeing on Instagram, whether it was like family, friends, or just like even influencers. I felt like around the same time I became a mom, there were many people that were becoming parents or pregnant, and just seeing how like these other women and people have just adjusted so well to motherhood. I was ashamed because I felt like I was less than. I felt I wasn't doing enough. I was ashamed that even Dan was adjusting way better to fatherhood than I was adjusting to motherhood. And I also felt ashamed for feeling ashamed. So there was a lot of shame surrounding my postpartum depression. I was also ashamed of feeling like I didn't want to be here anymore. And I'm not gonna say the word, but I just did not feel like being here on planet Earth. And I'll get more into that later. I remember coming home from the hospital and I was really trying hard to be okay with everything that has happened. I really tried to set up my mind, even when I was pregnant, like I just knew. I knew postpartum depression was gonna hit me. I knew I was going to have a pretty difficult time adjusting, and not saying that I was already looking at the negatives, but I've had depression before, and I have anxiety, and there are just certain traumas that I have with my body, and you know, being pregnant is very invasive. As beautiful as it is very invasive. You're literally harboring another person in your body. They're renting out your womb. That was very interesting to say. Even though I set up my mind like, okay, like I know we're probably gonna go through a difficult time, I wasn't really prepared as much as I thought I was for everything that was to come with my postpartum depression and my mental and emotional health. I was really trying to be okay with things because in my mind, I didn't want to be negative. I wanted to truly enjoy and bask in the joy that is motherhood. I wanted to just try to live in the moment and enjoy our new baby girl, and that did not happen. On the first day when we came back home, like I remember crying because it hit me that like she's here, she's home, she's with us, and we're in charge. And that was very scary because being in the hospital, you have nurses at your beck and call, and if you don't know something, you can just ring them up and they're there for you. And I had a really great group of like people, like nurses and doctors, which I'm very grateful for. And so it was really hard getting home and not having that, not having someone around who knows what to do. And I was scared of just like breaking her and just like something bad would happen. And thankfully, like my mom took almost 3 weeks off of work to stay with Dan and I, and my sisters were around, so we did have support. But I was still so anxious, and exhausted mentally, emotionally, physically, and it was just so much going on. Everything was happening all at once, and I was feeling everything at once, but then also going numb at the same time. As time would go by, I was kind of like hoping, wishing, and waiting and looking forward to when things would get easier. I had a really hard time with staying in the moment. Although I was home and trying to heal and my mom was there to help, I just felt like I had to do something. I am not one to sit and rest, which is a huge issue in and of itself, and that's something I'm working on. But it was just really hard for me to be still and be there with her, and it was a lot. And as time would go by, like, I just felt restless, and I felt guilty for feeling that way because, again, I was seeing all these moms, these influencers making cute videos with their babies and doing things like counting down the months for the babies. I mean, you know, maternity shoots, family photo shoots, all these things. And it's like, I felt so bad and so guilty for not being able to do these things because I was so concentrated on trying to get my mind right and to get myself right that I felt bad for not, you know, having a pregnancy photo shoot for myself, or, you know, having a newborn photo shoot and all these things. And I just, as time would go by, I would always find something to like nitpick at myself about or be insecure about, and I was just not in my mind. I felt like I wasn't even in my body. I was just feeling so many things, and I was feeling so much resentment and anger with a lot of people, and I was just feeling a lot of resentment and anger towards Dayon. And you're probably thinking like, what? How could you be resentful towards Dayon? He's like freaking amazing, and he is. Something that I feel like I was not prepared for at all was the amount of resentment and anger that I felt towards Dayon. And here's the thing, he didn't do anything specifically to make me feel so much resentment. Like, I resented him because he got to keep his body. He got to lose weight and gain weight at his own will. He got to work out. He got to go outside, go to work, talk to people, be around other people, and he had that sense of familiarity in his life. I feel like I had the ground snatched from me. I couldn't work out. I couldn't really do anything. I couldn't film. I couldn't create, which is something that I really, really love to do. Creating really keeps me grounded. Couldn't do that. I was just having this huge identity shift, and it was freaking me out, and I was spiraling so bad, and I resented him for being calm, and I resented him for being so able to easily just be a great parent, if that makes sense, because I was struggling. And even when people would ask him like, how are things, he'd be like, oh, things are great. And I resented him for saying that things were great, because it's like, are things great? Are things great? My nipples hurt right now. Are things great? Like, I was just, I was off the wall. And now that I look back, it's definitely the hormones. I'm still going through the hormones. The hormones were a lot, but I think because I expected so much from myself, and I saw that not only Dayon, but like other people were like living their lives and like going on vacation and having their fun, and, you know, getting to enjoy their bodies, and I was just at a state of rest, and I felt like I was doing nothing, and I felt like the world was passing me by, and I felt like, oof. Sorry, I'm like getting really emotional. It's like bringing me back. I am so awkward when I get emotional and cry. Oof. I just felt like no one really cared anymore. I felt like everybody has moved on with their lives, which is like, in hindsight, like, no duh. People have their own lives, they have things going on, but when I was pregnant, people would care. People would be like, oh my god, you're pregnant, how are you, how are things? And I feel like they would genuinely listen. People would just genuinely cared. I felt like after having the baby, it's kind of like, oh, well, she had the baby, she's good, she's done. I felt like I was losing my mind and no one could see me or hear me. And I was getting really upset at just the world and how the world treats mothers, and the health care, the maternal care in the US is quite frankly crap when it comes to maternity care, and how women have like at max 6 weeks to be at home with their kids, their newborn baby, and then have to go back to work. The fact that daycare and things like that are expensive, it made me so frustrated. I just felt like I was in a state of doom, and I just spiraled to the point where I was like, you know what, like I kind of don't feel like being here. I'm not saying that in a way that I would ever have done anything. It's just that I was kind of like, if something were to hit me and I just were to like not be here anymore, I wouldn't be too upset about it. And then immediately after, I would get upset at myself for feeling this way, because then I would think about like the thought of Irina not having a mom, and that would make me upset even more. So it was just a cycle of shame, anger, resentment, and it was a lot. This is why I wanted to document my journey, because part of the reason why I wanted to document my journey is because I don't think that people truly get it. And I truly feel like being pregnant, giving birth, and being postpartum and being a mom, all within the span of like a year and a half, it's a specific feeling. It's a specific experience, and you don't really know unless you go through it. And I just feel like it's not talked about as heavily. And again, you see all the cute photos, the videos and everything, but no one really talks about the physical, biological, cellular shift that being pregnant, giving birth, and being a mom, like what you go through. Your brain is physically rewired, and people wonder why moms are crazy or moms feel this way, and it's so bizarre to me. And that's why I document my journey, because I would hate for someone who is a first-time parent, a second-time parent, or just a parent or mom at all, like to feel like they're losing their mind and they feel like they're lonely, not realizing that that shit is normal. It's so freaking normal. It's funny because now the more that I talk about it, I see mothers who have been mothers for so many years, for like 30 years, talk about their experiences. And people who are first-time parents, first-time moms are talking about their experiences. And it's just like, oh, this is normal, like this is common. And something that I did that I am really grateful for is that before I even gave birth, I set up, therapy appointments, because I knew I would need it. And my therapist is a mom, and it's really great having someone who's older, who is a therapist, who understands the scientific side of the biological shift and the emotional and mental part of the shift of being a parent, and also the other part of being a mom, like actually living it and experiencing it and being it. It felt so good to have somebody validate what I'm feeling and make me realize that I'm not going crazy, and I'm not insane, and I'm not selfish, and I shouldn't feel ashamed. So I started getting to the point where I was fed up of feeling the way I was feeling. I of course was going to therapy, but I started realizing that how I'm feeling is going to affect my child if I continue going this way. I started looking at things from a different perspective, because I truly did not want to spiral or continue spiraling to the point where Irina was affected. So I started thinking in the perspective of, if I was Irina and me being Irina's mom, what would I want for her? What would I advise her? What would I want her to do? So basically I started mothering myself, and on days where I didn't really feel like it, I wouldn't do anything. On days where I would start to beat myself up, I would walk myself back and walk myself through a thought process. And instead of casting shame and guilt, I started showing myself compassion. I started giving myself grace. I was just realizing a huge part of the problem was that I was shaming myself, and I was making myself feel bad for things that are completely normal and natural. once I started to take the shame away from feeling how I felt, I started creating more content. I was creating content and it was therapeutic for me, but it was also good knowing that my videos are helping at least one person. Like the amount of comments that I've gotten, like, oh, I've showed your videos to my daughter, I've showed your videos to my wife, like, has made me feel so good, because if I can help at least just like one other person who went through what I went through, especially being a first-time mom, I feel like I've served my purpose, if that makes sense. I also feel like looking back at these videos, it's a documentation of me leaving the woman that I was before, and I've talked about before that I feel like I'm entering this new era in my life, and I feel like it's really great to see how I've transitioned from being pregnant into motherhood and now kind of just like finding myself. And I'm glad that I get to see that journey, and now that my head is more so above water, like giving myself grace and giving myself love, I feel like there were things that I could have done better. I will say I'm very proud of myself for booking these therapy appointments. I'm a big plugger of therapy. If you're postpartum and you can go to therapy, I highly suggest it. I honestly would say just go to therapy in general, but therapy really helped. Having the proper support, and just even outside of your partner, first of all, having a supportive partner is very important. But also having friends, mommy friends closer to your age, mommy friends, associates who are older, and just people that you can vibe with and understand what you're going through, that is huge. And taking time for yourself is really huge, because you will not have as much time as you did before, but you need moments, whether it's just sitting down for like 10-15 minutes without any sound or any stimulation, like that will do wonders. Take a nap for 15 minutes if you can. What I really did wish I did more of was giving myself grace and giving myself a lot more compassion earlier on. I feel like would have served me so well, allowing myself to live in the moment and not be so rushed to get back to a sense of normalcy. Just enjoying her and enjoying the day-to-day. I mean, Dan and I have the honor of raising such a smart, healthy, strong, that girl is strong. If she, like, once she gets a grip of your hair, your glasses, whatever, you're done. You're done. But we get the honor of raising such a beautiful, bright baby, and I feel like now I'm at the stage where I'm enjoying it more. Like, she is just like everything to us, and I can't explain to you, although I was going through a very hard time, I knew that although I had aversions of becoming a mom even before pregnancy, I knew I was meant to be a mom. I was meant to do this, and she is my baby, and she has taught me so much about myself, and I'm just so grateful for her. Being her mother is the greatest honor. It's hard, but I am so honored that I get to be her mom, that I get to share things with her, that I get to teach her things. And it's kind of fun, because while I'm discovering this new side to myself, while I'm discovering this new side to myself, I get to help her discover herself. I get to teach her healthy habits while I'm also learning these healthy habits. And it just also makes me realize that, you know, as a parent, I'm a person, and our parents who came before us, who maybe have done things differently in ways that we may not agree, are also human beings who have gone through things, who for the most part did the best they could with what they had. Yeah, I feel like this video is just like all over the place, very emotional, but that's where I'm at. And if you're a mom and you're feeling lonely, trust me, you are not alone. There is there are a lot of us who feel the way that I feel, and I'm sure even those moms who post happy moments and great pictures and beautiful videos of their families, like, they also have moments where they've probably had a mental breakdown. Or if you were like me, you probably had 5. But if there's anything that I want you guys to walk away from today's video, is that there is no shame in your postpartum depression, or just depression, mental health surrounding being a mom, being a parent. There's no shame in that. It's freaking hard. Being a mom, I will have to say, is the hardest job out there. So if you have days where you just sit down on the bathroom floor and cry, it's okay. If you have days where you just feel like giving up, it's okay, and there's no shame around it. And I just want you guys to know that. So thank you for watching today's video. I know it was a lot deeper, a lot more emotional, but I just had to come on here and just share that with you guys. And thank you for allowing me to have this platform to share it with you all. So I really don't know how to end this video. It's kind of awkward because I like cried and I'm like, bye, you know?